all things SEO and some things steak and margaritas.
I'm not sure that's the right ratio, but we'll do the best we can with what we have. We've been doing a ton of conversations about SEO these days. There's a lot of people out in the world that say, oh, SEO is dead. AI is going to take over. Nothing could be further from the truth. What have you been seeing on the great interwebs that's supposed to challenge or support our industry?
Well, really, it comes down to if you're complaining about your SEO today and you don't do anything about it, next year you will still be complaining about your SEO.
It's true.
And if being number one on Google or any of the other platforms that people search was as easy as paying some company $200, then everybody would be number one.
Fair point.
And if a chat GPT, you could just type a few things in and everybody does it, you're still not going to be number one.
That's a great point. Yes. Everybody I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of people about AI in the last 2 months, recognizes that AI is a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful add-on, but at least for the moment, you need humans to get the process started, right? Prompts. And
You
you need humans at the end to winnow through the results and make sure that they're worthwhile, accurate, not plagiarized, et cetera, et cetera.
you need somebody who cares
What
in the
could you
mix.
elaborate on that?
Oh, well, yes, I can. I will. I think I discussed this with you before, but you don't want to be that guy who I just saw. I go to the gym in the morning at 7 a.m. I didn't even realize the roads were icy. It was the other day when there was snow on the ground and the temperature had just gotten warm enough that it all starts melting. But I'm driving to the gym and the roads aren't slippery. So we get out of the we get in the parking lot and I realize pretty quickly it's an ice rink for whatever. Nobody salted it. Nobody's been driving through it. So I get out of my car and it's like falling on my ass every 2 steps because the thing's so. And the guy that's supposed to be salting it and plowing it and taking care of it is sitting in his car smoking a cigarette. And he waits an hour. I don't know if he's union or I'm waiting until the clock strikes this before I even get out and splash any salt. And meanwhile, people are falling on their ass trying to walk across the parking lot. Um, so you need somebody who cares on the job. And in terms of SEO and AI, we just had this conversation also. It's like there's ways that you can get AI into your programming console and you can say, hey, Chat GPT, I want a program that does this. But Chat GPT doesn't know what's important to you and what you care about or how you like your code to be written. And it's just going to produce something that might be useful, but it's probably not going to be in the way that you want it or prioritize the things that you need or care about.
Yeah, a guy that you and I work with, Big John Gowan, runs a company called Graphic Kitchen, and he does mostly WordPress programming. And there's a, coding plugin now for WordPress for the back end, so you can solve problems that the plugins and the themes don't solve with a little code. And he calls himself, I can't remember the words. Point being, he doesn't really consider himself a coder, but he needs a problem solved. He types in a prompt, he gets a code back, he tries it out a little bit. And I think the thing that it solves for him is just that initial, create the initial code, get the thing done. But then he says, always got to edit it. Now he's smart, and that surprises no one. Once he gets it edited and it serves him well, he saves that. Right. So now he has a library of code that was originally generated by whatever that plugin is that he's edited and put the work into several times to get where he wants it to be. And now he saves it. So it reminds me of how our people use Chat GPT to get their writing done. Or at least I hope that's how they're getting it done. Is like, I can't brainstorm this. I've got no ideas how to get started. Here's the prompt. Write this about our client's business with this keyword. And Chat GPT writes it. And then I hope what they do is they export it to Word or something, and they edit it again until it's a useful product, right? And that's kind of where we are with that stuff. It's better than zero, but it's definitely something that needs to have human eyes to get the process started and human eyes to get it good enough for prime time.
Well, two things. Hope will get you nowhere. So I am confident that our team is not doing that because we have had those discussions.
Right.
So we're not just sitting back and hoping. We've talked about this and reviewed it with the team.
Right.
Number two, it's just like anything else. Like Wikipedia is a good place to start too sometimes, but you're not going to base your research paper on that.
Yeah, I hope not. Right. You got to double check. And by the way, for something like information out there in the great interwebs on Wikipedia, sometimes it's pretty hard to find source material, let's say in the world of science, that's actually, controlled, double-blind scientific studies on a large scale that have been peer reviewed, just because so many people have an axe to grind. And if you really want the truth, you got to dig a little bit.
Yeah, because sometimes people have agendas, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Occasionally, like after the Michigan-Ohio State games, sometimes the Wikipedia page for Ryan Day says his birthplace was third base.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You better keep up on that. Meanwhile, I think it probably helps people to start getting familiar with some of these platforms. If there's going to be so much AI in our lives, and there's going to be, whether it's justified or it's hysteria, I think it's justified, but I think the hysteria is not justified. Chat GTP is one thing to use. I mentioned in our meeting this morning, I've been looking at an app called Perplexity, which is kind of helpful. It doesn't do quite as much generative. It's more of a search app. Google Bard is helpful. Siri can give you information. Google Assistant can give you information. And then, for coding, we talked about plugins in Word, and our boy Dan Holland mentioned that you can integrate Chat GPT into Terminal and do Python coding and other nefarious nonsense.
Well, listen to me.
Yes, sir.
It goes back to what I just said, that you have to have somebody who cares in the mix. And is going to guide cares about what they're doing and cares about the results and prioritizes the things that are important to you. And if you don't have that at Boeing, for instance, and all of a sudden the doors and the wheels start falling off your planes because somebody said, we're going to prioritize making money over safety.
Mm-hmm.
Or with WordPress, it's like, oh, this makes it easy for me to put up a website. Yeah, it also makes easy for people to hack into your website because you're not keeping it up to date with security stuff.
That is true. Yep. I mean, that's the other flip side. There's so much going on, and people are overwhelmed by the sheer volume and speed of information. And if they're not supported at work, they're probably going to try to find shortcuts. Can't blame them, right? It's just a survival instinct. But some shortcuts, like having a useful AI program that can help you move along a little bit, are good. And some shortcuts, like forgetting to double check that the bolts are tightened on your airplane door, not so good.
Right.
But I'm very interested in the idea of making sure that the bolts are tightened on my steak preparation skills. And I'm wondering if you have any steak or margarita stories to share with us this week.
Did I think I shared that I went to Plum Market and got a couple of Snake River Farms. My preference would be to get a ribeye, but for some reason they don't carry them. So they gave me New York strips. And so I sous vide one and torched it with my blowtorch at the end, and it was quite delightful. And then I found out later that same day that my brother-in-law had sent me a box full of 5 Snake River Farms gold label ribeyes.
Gosh darn,
1.5 inches thick.
What?
So I have not yet done anything with, but that's going to happen this weekend, believe you me.
I suspect it will. I love hearing that. And I saw on social media, there's a local meat market that we've discussed before called Sparrow. And they're in a bigger market called Carytown that's kind of eclectic and fun. And if you're a downtown kind of person, you go down there and you buy your tomatoes and your steaks and your fresh bread and a cup of coffee. And they were flipping through Snake River Farm ribeyes this morning that they have behind their counter. So if someone were highly motivated, and I admit both you and I, it takes a little bit of extra urging to get us to want to go downtown Ann Arbor, but if someone were motivated, us or someone that watches this, go down to Sparrow. The people are wonderful down there. Bob Sparrow's a great dude, and a lot of people he hire are really nice. They have great food. I bought entire lambs from them before, and steaks and all kinds of stuff. But they got Snake River Farms right now. And in a pinch, when you're not willing to wait that 3 days for express mail to bring you your Snake River Farms ribeyes, I think that will do.
And I will point out that Snake River Farms, not that they're sponsoring our podcast, but maybe they should. When they ship you a steak, they do a really good job in terms of putting it in a sturdy box, with the dried ice and this freezer bag that, yeah, they come in there. And like, I think I was supposed to get that box of 5 steaks last Friday, and for some reason it got delayed. I'm like, oh, geez. I mean, is it still going to be frozen? Well, it was cold outside and it came, it was still, completely frozen. So kudos to them. But as to your point, I would much rather be able to just drive down the street to the store and look behind the meat counter and say, I want that Snake River Farms, or I want this one.
Yeah, yeah, same thing. I love what you said about how they ship it. I had the same experience. The last, um, I think maybe it was some tomahawks from somebody I know sent to me, and they were weather delayed by a day or two, and I had that passing thought. And they came and they were still frozen solid and wonderful. The other fun thing we do at our house is I have a cold plunge tank, and so it's filled with 100 gallons of water. And when we get that dry ice, everybody in the family gets their cell phone cameras, and we go out and we throw that dry ice into the cold plunge and spend 20 minutes playing with the fog generated by it. Simple pleasures in life, but we don't want that dry ice to go to waste.
I've not found a use for it, but it sounds like you have.
well, simple minds are entertained by simple pleasures. Um, I got all feisty. I think it was on Tuesday. I'm eating absolutely zero carbs right now, and after the first week or two, it just makes you crave, meat, and especially meat with fat in it. So the Wagyu and the steaks and everything. And I just had to have something. I went across the street to Whole Foods. Sadly, my favorite butcher there, who shares the first name with me, wasn't there. He always does me up really nice. He goes in the back and finds the aged steaks and cuts them as thick as I want. And then we talk, bullshit about cooking steaks. Super fun dude. He wasn't there. So the couple guys that were there, they were kind of like your guy that sits in the parking lot smoking a cigarette. They were there, but they weren't really there, if you know what I mean. And I was like, man, come on. So I had to pick these two ribeyes that were behind the counter, and they were okay. They were fine, but they wouldn't be what I would have had if my boy Nick was there. So I bought those ribeyes and I took them home and I had one at lunch, and I'm like, I don't have time to go through the whole process. So I'm just going to put it in a preheated 500-degree oven, 6 inches from the broiler, with the broiler going, and spice it, throw it in, cook it, bam, 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 stick the meat thermometer in there, which I did, pulled it at like 128, let it sit for a little bit. And it was pretty good, but it was pretty good. So, you and I are badly spoiled now because we eat these incredible Wagyu steaks all the time. They're always tender, they're well marbled. This was marbled, not as tender as, I don't know how to get that. We haven't really talked about a toughness scale. The Wagyus are usually 10 out of 10. This was a 6.5 on the toughness scale. And there's just something about when it's not aged enough, it's tougher than it should be. It doesn't have full flavor that it should, right? So I feel like my cooking turned it was pretty good. It wasn't quite like a sous vide or a full-on reverse sear. But it was tolerable. Finished with a little bit of herb butter, and I ate about half of that steak. And then my daughter, who had a snow day, woke up at the leisurely hour of 1 p.m., shuffled out in her SpongeBob pajamas or whatever the hell she was wearing, and demolished the rest of that steak. And she had no complaints about it whatsoever. So it must have been pretty good.
There you go. Yeah, you got a bunch of savages over there.
My God, 15-year-old teenage girls, they're all tiny and petite and, fussy with the makeup and all that stuff. You put a good steak in front of that girl, and she turns into a barbarian. Which is okay with me. So other than the Snake River ribeyes that you have in abundance at the moment, any other plans over the next few days?
Well, I am flying to Maui, Hawaii.
Oh.
And in the past, I have been able to go to the Safeway supermarket, and for whatever reason, they seem to have an abundance of Snake River Farms steaks behind the counter.
Yes.
And I can tell them, I said, these don't look thick enough. You have any thicker? He goes, well, how thick you want them? I said, I want them 2 inches thick. So he goes in the back and he cuts me one that's he goes, like this? I said, yeah, except I want 3 of them. So he goes back and makes after the Lahaina fires, that they were closed for a while, then they were open, but they didn't have water, so they couldn't have their meat counter open. So they would just package it up at one of their other stores and bring it over. So there was none of that. But I have it on good authority that they do have their water back. So I am suspecting that the meat counter is open, and I'll be looking for my buddy to tell him cut them 2 inches thick.
Hell yes. I love it. Man, that just sounds amazing. I mentioned to you that I bought two ribeyes from Whole Foods, and knowing, having cooked one, that the second one was not going to be quite the extravagant experience I want, I cut the other one up into small chunks, cut away the parts I didn't want, and sauteed that with a bunch of bell peppers. And by the way, I mean, it was very, very nice. Bell peppers, salt, pepper, a little garlic powder, a little truffle salt, some olive oil, uh, and then one of the spicy, I think it might have been paprika. I don't like smoked paprika, but I like sweet paprika, just enough so you can tell it's in there. That was a delightful lunch, I must say, and 100% free of rice, bread, or pastries, much to my chagrin, but I'm sticking with it.
Look at you, Mr. 75 Hard.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm almost a month out, so I got another month and a half to go, and hopefully I won't keep losing weight this fast, or there'll be nothing left of me by March 17th. Very cool. All right, man. This is wonderful. Made me really, really hungry, as it always does. Have a great Friday, great weekend, and I can't wait to hear what kinds of things you come up with.
Yes, sir. Aloha.